Hi, good evening, everyone. Beta, in today's class, we are going to go ahead and begin with intermediate macroeconomics. First of all, we will see what exactly is the syllabus of macroeconomics and what we intend to do and how we intend to cover this syllabus. Then I will start taking you through the first chapter of this syllabus, which is going to be Blanchard chapter number 6. So let us try and see first of all, what topics we need to cover, and I will also make you understand how you want to cover these topics. So, Unit 1, it is going to talk about the short run and medium run equilibrium. But when we talk about short run and medium run equilibrium, what do we want to do exactly? We want to go ahead and we want to understand, first of all, the labor market. So in the labor market, there are various concepts that you want to understand. First, you want to understand what is unemployment. You want to understand, how the wage setting relation works, how the price setting relation works. So all those concepts we will be covering in the labor market. This labor market you will be doing through chapter 6 of Blanchard. Okay, beta. Then the second thing that I will be covering here, that is the derivation of the AS curve. So once we have understood, I want to also talk about in labor market, what is unemployment rate, what is natural rate of unemployment and so on. Once you have understood how labor market works, we want to go one step ahead and derive the AS curve. But the AS curve is derived from the labor market. The AD curve, aggregate demand curve, is derived from the goods and money market. ठीक है? So ये AS curve जो होता है, ये labor market से ही derive होता है. So once you understand how the labor market works, you can derive the AS curve also. And once you derive this AS curve, I want to go ahead and I want to do an interaction between the AS and AD. Okay. And that is going to be your chapter 7 of Blanchard. So we will do chapter 6 Blanchard and then we will do chapter 7 Blanchard. Second, we are going to go ahead and talk about the Phillips curve. That is going to be the next unit. This is one of the most important unit, and you will definitely get a lot of questions in the Phillips curve, from the Phillips curve. MCQ will also come. You will get 5-mark question also. You will get 10-mark question also. It is that important a concept. Okay. So beta, in Phillips curve, I will be talking about inflation, first of all, and I will be talking about expectation theories. Then I will be deriving the Phillips curve in both the short run and long run. But this will be covered through chapter 6 and, sorry, not 6, chapter 8 and 9 of Blanchard. तो Blanchard एक बहुत important book है जो हमें throughout follow करनी होगी, ठीक है? And then I will also be doing some pages of chapter 14 of Blanchard. Now, apart from this, there is a fixed question. I can bet that this will come for 10 marks. So we will get a question on adaptive expectation, rational expectation, और पॉलिसी इनइफेक्टिवनेस. इस पे मैं एक अच्छा सा आंसर लिखवाऊंगी जो हमें एज इट इज लिखना होगा एग्जाम में. सो पॉलिसी इनइफेक्टिवनेस. Beta, this we have to do from Atfield and Demery. And I am telling you, this usually comes as a 10 mark question. So, 10 marks ka hi aane wala hai. Okay. Then we want to go ahead and we want to cover the next unit, unit number 3. And this is going to be microeconomic foundations. So, beta, in microeconomic foundations, there are 2 foundations that you want to study. First is called as the consumption foundations. And second is known as the investment foundations. In the consumption foundations, we have various theories like life cycle hypothesis, permanent income hypothesis, Fisher's hypothesis. So all those consumption hypotheses are important. And then in investment, we will again have some theories like what is the demand for fixed investment, what is residential investment, and inventory investment. So this and this together, beta, this has to be done from Branson, right? And then this has to be done from Jones. Okay. These two, again, very important topic. So I can again tell you that 1 10-mark question will come only from consumption theories. You can take it in writing. And in this, I will do few of the numericals also, expected numericals that can come in exam. So we will try and cover those numericals also. ठीक है बेटा? अच्छा, अब हम एक बारी एग्जाम की बात कर लेते हैं. तो जो हमारा फाइनल एग्जाम होगा, as you are well aware, it will be of 90 marks. This 90 marks can be divided in 3 subparts, right? So I will have part A, which will be MCQs. There will be 15 MCQs that will be asked to you, beta, and each MCQ will be of 2 marks. So 30 marks for MCQs. So we have to do many tests on MCQs also, because MCQs are important. Second, beta, part B. These will be 5-mark questions. After every chapter, I will give you MCQs, 5 markers and 10 markers from that chapter. And you're supposed to go ahead and revise that chapter with me with those MCQs, 5 markers and 10 markers. Okay. So, beta, this 5 markers, there will be 8 5 markers. There is a choice. You're supposed to do only 6. Each will be of 5 marks each. So 30 marks for this section. ठीक है, ये 5 mark questions में क्या क्या आ सकता है? जैसे basic thing, जैसे they can ask you to find the unemployment rate, or derive natural rate of unemployment, or derive the wage setting price setting relation, find the equilibrium condition. ऐसे questions can come in the 5 markers. Then beta, there will be section C, which will be the 10 markers, and you will be given 4 questions. And you have to do any 3 out of those. So 3 into 10, which will be 30 marks. But each section is going to be equally marked. Her section equal marks ka hone wala hai. So I can tell you easily right away that there will be definitely 1 question based out of policy ineffectiveness. Ye definitely exam mein aayega hi aayega. We know this for sure. So इससे related हमें दोनों 5 marks and 10 marks written में practice करने हैं. There will be 1 question on Phillips curve, long run versus short run. Definitely, how we go from Phillips curve to augmented Phillips curve, इस पे हमें answer लिखना ही लिखना है. There is 1 question that will come on AS curve, 1 on labor market, 1 on consumption theory, and 1 on investment. So I can tell you the questions that will come in exam. And those questions we need to practice for sure in the written way. But macroeconomics is all about writing it in the correct way. So, you know, when I used to in Delhi University check macroeconomic papers, presentation is what used to matter a lot. If I see that a child has given good presentation, they have written introduction, they have made graphs, they have made figures, then believe me, I would give full marks to that person, right? So I will tell you exactly how you should be writing these answers in exam, and accordingly, we will practice them. Okay. Now let us begin with the first chapter of the day. So that is going to be my labor market. Now, when I talk about labor market, the first thing that arises is you have to understand that not everyone in the population is a working population. You have the entire population, and you can divide the population in two parts: people who are working and people who are not working. People who are not working is called the dependent class. Don't worry, we will write everything down. Pehle samajh lo. People who are not working is the dependent class. Just for example, people from age 0 to 18 can be dependent on their parents. So that's the dependent class. People from 60 till the end, they have retired and maybe they are dependent on their children. That's also the dependent class. So I must divide my entire population into people who can work and people who cannot work. Okay, so what will I say? But I will say that if I have the total population, you can give the title as flow of workers. So if I have my total population, this population can be divided in two parts. One is dependent and one is non-dependent. In dependent, I will include all people till the age of 18 or 16, depending on which country you are from. कुछ countries में 18 तक work करना allowed नहीं है, कुछ में 16 तक. And then anybody above the age of 16. Now, the people who are not dependent, मतलब वो काम कर सकते हैं, they are between the age of 19 to 18 plus to below 60. But these people, they can further be divided in two parts: institutional and the other can be non-institutional. Civilians. बेटा इंस्टीट्यूशनल वो हो गए जो मिलिट्री में है, उनको हम वर्किंग में नहीं काउंट करेंगे, वो हमारी जनरल वर्किंग में नहीं आएंगे, राइट? सो अदर देन दीज, जो भी नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल है, जो किसी ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूट से कनेक्टेड नहीं है कंट्री के, that is the general civilian population that I have. Now, out of these civilians, I can divide it in two parts. There may be people who want to work and there may be people who don't want to work. Just for example, there may be people who are housewives. Housewives, they are non-institutional civilians. वो किसी institute से connected नहीं है, but they are just going ahead and they're working within their home, right? Similarly, there may be people who say, supposedly, I want to take a break for 1 year from my regular work. Then I am also a non-institutional civilian, but I'm not working. So I can divide this again in two parts. One becomes your civilian labor force and other becomes out of labor force. तो बेटा ये लेबर फोर्स कौन सी हो गई? ये लेबर फोर्स वो लोग हैं जो काम करना चाहते हैं. People who are willing to work. They may get job or they may not get job, but they should be willing to work. Then they are part of the labor force. So we can say now we should define the labor force first. So please define it, beta. labor force. The civilians who are willing to work. Form labor force. So they may or may not get a job. वो बात की बात है. But they are looking out for a job, na? They want to work, na? They don't want to stay at home. Then they are part of this labor force. So then labor force can be divided in two parts. One becomes employed and one becomes unemployed. Who are employed? Employed are the people who have job, who are currently working. And who are unemployed? People who are not working, but they want to work. They are looking out for job. So I want to define unemployed as those people who are willing to work. They want to work, but do not currently have a job. So those people who are willing to work, काम तो करना चाहते हैं, but job नहीं है, that is an unemployed person. Now, when you will get this in exam, you have to make this flow. If you don't make this flow, then things will be difficult for the faculty to understand. Okay, so this diagram, which is the flow of workers, this is very, very important. Now, there is another diagram that we need to understand, and I can call that diagram as the relationship between employed, unemployed, and labor force. And I want to do this with some numbers. तो ध्यान से समझो अब हम क्या कर रहे हैं. Say, I make a circle and this represents employment. And I'm saying that there are 127 million people who are employed. वो लोग जो अभी employed हैं currently, वो 127 million लोग हैं एक country के अंदर. And beta, I am saying that unemployed. There are 7.0 million people who are unemployed. And then I have out of labor force. There are 66.7 people who are out of labor force. अब पहली बात समझो. Suppose I ask you, find the labor force. So beta, what is the labor force? Those people who are either employed or unemployed. या तो वो employed है या unemployed है, but they are part of the labor force. They are willing to work. Then that is labor force. So beta, my labor force will be employed. L will be employed plus unemployed. Employed will be 7. Unemployed will be 7. And employed will be 127. So I will get this as 134 million. That is going to be my labor force. Now, suppose I ask you question number 2. Find the total population. So बेटा यहाँ पे कुछ civilians, non-civilians, dependent, non-dependent कोई information नहीं दी है. So I can simply say in this case that total population will be people in the labor force plus out of labor force. Either वो काम कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं. Either they are willing to work or not willing to work. And this means that these people who are out of labor force, it already includes younger children and old retired people. Because no third information is given. यहाँ और कुछ भी नहीं दिया हुआ. मतलब out of labor force में वो लोग भी होंगे जिनकी जॉब खत्म हो चुकी है. People who have retired, automatically they are not looking for job. So they are out of labor force. And children, like for example, people who are studying currently, right? They are also not looking for job. They are also out of labor force. So it means that this out of labor force would have included people who are basically dependents. That is why this is the thing, right? So this may also happen. So I can just say that beta labor force was 134. This is what I calculated. And my out of labor force is going to be 66.7. So this is going to be, calculate this 9 and 10, 200.7. This is going to be my total population. Third thing. So beta, these kind of numericals can come in exam as a 5 marker. So you should be aware of these. Now just think about it. Beta, I am saying that labor force is employed plus unemployed. Suppose I divide throughout by L. I'm dividing throughout by labor force. So क्या हो जाएगा? L by L is equal to E by L plus UE by L. Beta L by L तो simply 1 हो गया. This thing, number of people employed by the labor force, beta this is known as employment rate. Employment rate. And number of people unemployed by labor force, beta this is called as unemployment rate. Unemployment rate. So what are we saying? We are saying that employment rate plus unemployment rate, that is equal to 1. Now, suppose I ask you, calculate employment rate. So beta, what will you do? Employment rate is going to be how many people are employed? 137. What is the labor force? Population se divide nahi karna hai. Many people make this mistake. How many people are unemployed? Employed? 127. What is the labor force? 134. So beta, this is going to be, employment rate will be 127 by 134. Please calculate this for me in decimals. Okay. Similarly, if I ask you calculate unemployment rate, again beta, unemployment rate will be people unemployed by labor force. Nobody will divide it by population. No mistake should be done here. So people unemployed are 7 and total labor force is 134. So this is going to be 7 divided by 134. This will be your unemployment rate. So I hope this is clear how we can find the employment rate and how we can find the unemployment rate. Now, let us make few notes here. Important notes. First point, पहले समझो फिर लिखेंगे. देखो बेटा, जो हमारा आउट ऑफ लेबर फोर्स है, जो लोग काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, people who are not working, I have told you that because there is no other value, matlab it includes dependents also. Now imagine a person, suppose a person like you. Suppose you are currently in your 3rd year of college. Now next year, you look out for a job. and you get a job, or you don't get a job, but you start looking out for job. The moment you start looking for a job, it means you have become a part of the labor force, right? So people who are out of labor force, every year, from those people, few will become part of the labor force because they will start looking out for job. When will they look out for job? Who can look out for job? Number one, students who turn 18 plus, or in other words, who now become non-dependent students, right? Or graduates, once they have graduated or post-graduated, can start looking out for job. Thus, becoming part of the labor force. So earlier they were out of labor force, but now they have become part of the labor force. They may or may not be employed. Ekdam se zaruri nahi hai they will get a job. So they may or may not get a job. But they're looking out for job now. So they are becoming part of the labor force. Is this clear? That's the first part. Second, suppose imagine that there was this mother who was working earlier, but she just left her job to take care of her child. Now her child is big enough. Okay. Now, because the child is big enough and the child is now capable of doing work, the mother wants to get back and start looking out for job. So she will also be part of the workforce. So in other words, any person who immediately starts looking out for job. This is other example. So housewives who now want to look out for job. Again, they may, this is V beta, they may or may not get a job, but they're looking out for job now. So therefore, they're becoming part of the labor force. So first thing that we have to understand is that from this out of labor force, ab hum aage concept ko badha rahe hain, that some people will become part of the labor force. दोनों डायरेक्शन में आधे लोग एम्प्लॉय हो जाएंगे और आधे अनएम्प्लॉय हो जाएंगे. Some will get a job, some will not get a job, but they are becoming part of the labor force, right? Like housewives or any person. For example, any person who left a job because he thought that I want to take a break. Now he wants to again look for a job. So any person who's looking out for a job is becoming part of the labor force. He may or may not get a job. If he gets a job, he becomes employed. If he doesn't get a job, he becomes unemployed. But nevertheless, he's looking out for a job. So aisa ho sakta hai, supposedly some numbers are given that let's say that 1.5 million people, they get a job. And let's say that 1.1 million people, they don't get a job. But they are looking out for job now. So they have become part of the labor force. Ye pehli baat ho gayi. Second beta. Second pointer. Note 2. Imagine that I am looking out for a job since last 4 years. I was part of the labor force. Now, all of a sudden, I think I don't want to look anymore. बहुत हो गया यार, 4 साल से ढूंढ रहे हैं, नौकरी तो मिल नहीं रही है. I get very distressed and I stop looking out for a job. So people who stop looking for job, they become out of labor force. There are people who don't have incentive to look for a job. कि यार अब नहीं हो पा रहा और नहीं ढूंढ पा रहे हैं. So there may be people who no more want to look out for a job because they no more have an incentive attached to it. So अभी तक तो मैं job ढूंढ रही थी, but now I think it's too much. I don't want to anymore look out for a job. So because I've stopped looking for a job, अब मैं job ढूंढ भी नहीं रही हूँ. I don't want to work. I will go out of labor force. अब मेरे को कोई unemployed नहीं बोलेगा. अब मेरे को labor force के ही बाहर माना जाएगा. So every year, some people become distressed. And they stop looking out for a job altogether. So they become out of labor force. Okay, beta. Now, every year, note 3. बेटा आपने बहुत देखा होगा LinkedIn पे दो चीजें हो रही होती हैं. One is called hire, and the other that many people have hashtag open to work, that I have got, they have just asked me to leave the job. There are separations from the job. Separations. So these two things happen quite often. Hire means what? Hire means that unemployed become employed. एंड दूसरा क्या हो सकता है, जो लोग एम्प्लॉयड हैं अब वो अनएम्प्लॉयड हो गए, उनको जॉब से निकाल दिया गया. सो एम्प्लॉयड become unemployed. These two things are also possible. So what will happen, beta? That means that there will be some people who were employed, but they have lost their job, and they have become unemployed. उनको फिर से ढूंढनी पड़ेगी नई नौकरी. They have to again look out for a job. And there are some people who were unemployed, but now they have been hired. And they have got a job. ठीक है जी. So this can also take place. At last, next note. Let's write that down. Note 4. Beta, imagine that you were employed. अच्छी खासी नौकरी थी. But now, all of a sudden, you think, I don't want to work anymore. Let me just retire. Or you may think that I want to dedicate some time to my house. I want to take care of my family and I will rejoin sometime later. So there may be people who retire, who were working, but now they have retired. Or people who willingly quit job to rest for a while. Or maybe again, I gave you an example. Maybe, I am a new mother. I want to leave for some time and I want to take care of my family. So other reasons, like taking care of family. Due to these are those people who were better employed, but now they are not even looking for a job. Unemployed nahi ho rahe hain. They're going out of labor force. So this direction is also possible, that from employed, you will simply go out of labor force. That is also possible. Now, one last thing here. So write down the last note, note 5. Now, but suppose I'm employed in XYZ company. It might be possible that now I switch my job, right? Or I am employed as, let's say, a professor. It might be possible that now again I switch my job and I go into some other kind of job. So it is possible that people who are employed switch job, but remain employed. So this is shown by something like this. They were employed, they remain employed, but they keep switching their jobs. So you have to consider all of this. This is now the complete relationship that we have drawn. This relationship takes into consideration all these things that I have written. There can be separations, there can be hires, there can be quits, there can be layoffs. Layoff matlab ki people who were employed, but now they have become unemployed. This is a layoff. Right? So considering all of these things, this is the entire diagram that you can draw as a relationship between these things. And these relationships are very, very important, even from exam point of view. Now, I want to define something which is known as average duration of unemployment. वैसे तो ये वर्ड ही अपने आप में समझा देता है कि इसका क्या मतलब है, but let's understand. The average time that you spend being unemployed, that is known as average duration of unemployment. So we can simply say, in very simple terms, we can say that the average length of time people spend unemployed is called average duration of unemployment. Okay, beta. Now, different countries will have different this thing. ठीक है, तो मैं अपनी इंडिया के डेटा को एनालाइज करके I can look into the data and I can tell अच्छा कितने टाइम के लिए on an average it takes a person to get a new job. Suppose today I become unemployed, how much time will it take for me to get into a new job? So different countries have different data set, and your book suggests that I think so for US it is 2 to 3 months. Okay, so again this differs from country to country. Okay, it can be different for each country. Okay, now we want to go ahead and we want to talk about something which is very, very important in this chapter, and that is the peaks and lows. But usually empirical result or empirical data does not come in exam. मतलब ऐसा कोई नहीं पूछेगा कि 1990 में यूएस में कितना अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट था या 1994 में यूएस में कितना अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट था. People will not ask that. But still, because you are an economic student, you should be aware about some of the graphs and how to interpret those graphs. Okay, so I am just going to go ahead and I'm going to take you through one of that graph, and I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what it means. So let's say I take year here, and let's say I take unemployment rate here. Right? This is again a US data that I'm teaching you. Let's say that beta, the data set looks something like this. ये important नहीं है, समझो कि क्या हो रहा है और कैसे हो रहा है. Beta, note that this is going high to high to high to high. lows भी आ रहे हैं, but it's going from high to high to high to high. Whenever you see such graphs, from those graphs, you can find what is called as a trend. What is a trend? A trend is a line that you draw through the graph. So if I were to draw a line through this much part of the graph, I will understand that it must be an upward line. I cannot draw a downward sloping line. No, वो तो नहीं बन रही है. So if I draw a line through these points, I clearly see it should be an upward sloping line. And if I see a line through these points, I see that this should be a downward sloping line. Because this line that you draw, that is called as trend. And what does a trend tells me? A trend tells me a long run movement. So a trend is telling me if I draw an upward slope line, it means that over time, unemployment rate is increasing. More people are becoming unemployed. And if I draw a downward sloping line, it means that over time, people are getting jobs and unemployment rate is decreasing. Okay? So you can just make a note of this point. ये किसी भी ग्राफ के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है. मतलब आपको, as I told you, कोई एक ग्राफ इसमें हमें याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है. We don't have to remember one particular graph because these are just empirical data. But you should understand how to read a graph in general. So we can say that there is a trend, and a trend represents long run situation. In this case, so if you go to the data point, बस एक यहाँ का मैं बता रही हूँ, this data point, it is 1980. So in this case, it is showing that till 1980, unemployment rate was increasing. Post which it started to decrease. Okay, beta. Post which it started to decrease. Now, why does unemployment rate increase and why does unemployment rate decrease? There are multiple reasons behind it. Like one of the major thing that is there, that is known as your the cyclical movements, whether your country is during a period of recession or boom. And then the second thing is, what are your economy's policies? So how unemployment rate changes and what are the factors behind these unemployment rates? We want to get a detail of those, but we will get a detail through time. मतलब एकदम से अभी हम नहीं बता रहे कि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट क्यों बढ़ता है क्यों घटता है. जब हम फिलिप्स कर्व पढ़ लेंगे, जब हम इन्फ्लेशन समझ लेंगे, then we will go ahead and understand what are the reasons and what is the trade-off between unemployment rate and other policies. For now, we will stop here for the moment. Now, let us do the next part of it, beta, which is known as wage determination. Okay, and in this, the first thing I want to talk about, let's write them down together only, that is known as collective bargaining. What is collective bargaining? Wage determination means that we have to find what are the different ways in which wage can be determined. क्या क्या तरीके होते हैं कि हम wage को calculate कर सकते हैं, कि हम wage find कर सकते हैं. उसके अंदर the first technique that we want to talk about is collective bargaining. First of all, read the term. But a collective means together. Bargaining का मतलब हमें पता है, I am bargaining with someone. So collective bargaining means when you bargain together. Now, you would have seen these movies in the old era. I think so, all these Anil Kapoor movies, right? Kya hota tha un movies mein? So in those Anil Kapoor movies, you would see that he was the head of a labor union, and then there were multiple laborers, and then he would go ahead and he would bargain the wage on their behalf, right? He would say ki, we will not work if you don't give us this much wage. He would set a bar that anything below this wage, I am not going to work. That is collective bargaining. When you have a labor union and one person is not asking for a different wage, all those people together, they go ahead and they ask for a particular wage. That is an example of collective bargaining. So let us write down the formal definition of it. So please write down bargaining between a union of labor or a group of unions and a firm or a group of firms is called collective bargaining. So beta, on the one side, I can have either one union or multiple unions. बहुत अलग-अलग unions एक साथ इकट्ठा हो गए हैं. On the other side, I will either have one firm or multiple firms. And the bargaining that takes place between them, that what wage we should be setting up, that is called collective bargaining. Now, this collective bargaining, it is again different from countries to countries. Same to तरीके से follow नहीं हो सकती है. So the book gives you multiple examples that, you know, in US, the collective bargaining takes place in one way. In Europe, the collective bargaining takes place another way. So we can go ahead that and we can say that this differs from country to country. Now, I want to go ahead and I want to talk about something very important about the bargaining part here. सिर्फ इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे भी समझना और यूनियन के लेवल पे भी समझने की कोशिश करो. See, there are jobs which don't require a lot of skills. Just for example, let's say that the job of going ahead and distributing a newspaper, or the job of in McDonald's collecting money, right? These jobs are very different from the job of a CEO. The job of a CEO is very difficult, right? His skills will be very difficult. He has to do many degrees. He has to take a lot of experience before he can reach that level. So I can divide the jobs in two parts. The first job can be a job which is better a high-skilled job. And the second job is a take it or leave it job. मतलब अगर ऐसा कि तुम नहीं करोगे तो कोई और कर लेगा, इतनी कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है टाइप. So if it is a very high-skilled job, right, which means it requires a lot of your skills to be put into place, right, then this person will have less substitutes available. इसको कोई easily replace नहीं कर सकता. Like I cannot go ahead and replace Ratan Tata, or I cannot go ahead and replace Mr. Mukesh Ambani, right? It's a very high-skilled job that they are doing. So people who are into a high-skilled job have more bargaining power. वो ज्यादा wage command कर सकते हैं. वो बोल सकते हैं कि हमें इतनी पैसा दो ही दो. But people who are into a low-skilled job, right, they can not have a very high bargaining power, because if they will not work, somebody else will work. So here, write down next point under this itself. So please write down that the amount of bargaining or the level of bargaining differs from job to job. बेटा मैक्रोइकोनॉमिक्स से थोड़ा लिखना जरूरी है. You should know the right words that you have to use, है ना? A lot of times you know the concept well, but if you don't have these written notes, then it will become difficult for you to write the answers in exam. So we have to write this thing also down. Okay, so please write down the higher the skills required to do the job, the more likely there will be bargaining. So if you require more skills, just a CEO ka job, then he can command any wage, right? So please write down wages offered at entry level jobs, or take it or leave it jobs cannot have high bargaining attached to it. फिर से समझो. जैसे for example, even if it is a new graduate, right? जैसे for example, let's say I am in the industry from last 8 years, and now there is a new person who has just done economic honors and entered the industry. The amount of bargaining that I can do, jitni high wage I can command, it will be different from what that person can command. So I can say that new college graduates can negotiate only on a few aspects. वो बहुत कम negotiate कर सकते हैं, but CEOs can negotiate a lot more. So we also want to talk about कि कितनी bargaining possible है, and we are अभी तक हमने दो चीजें बताई हैं, that bargaining can differ from country to country, and bargaining can also differ from person to person depending on their skill. Now we are saying that when it comes to countries like, तो यहाँ पे मैंने लिखा था ना, bargaining differs from country to country. So I will continue, just write an example here, beta. Like for example, in Japan, you can just continue below this. इसके नीचे शुरू कर दो. That in Japan and in European countries, bargaining, collective bargaining actually, collective bargaining plays an important role. Right? And these ये जो bargain कर रहे हैं हम, it can take place at individual firm level, it can take place at the industry level, or it can even take place at the national level. So write down, it can take place at firm, industry, or national level. Let me give you an example. तो बेटा जब हम आंसर लिखते हैं एग्जाम में, why am I emphasizing always? Because ultimately we want to score good marks, है ना? And good marks में सिर्फ ये important नहीं है कि आपको एक concept आता हो. Good marks में ये भी important है कि आपको उसको आंसर को लिखना आता हो. So जैसे अगर हमने लिखा wage determination के factors, they're asking how wage is determined. हमने उसमें first point लिखा collective bargaining. And then we wrote what is collective bargaining, हमने उसे explain किया. Then we wrote that bargaining differs from job to job. Then we wrote that bargaining differs from country to country. ये हमने लिखा. इसमें जब हमने job to job वाला point डाला, अगर उसी में if you make a diagram, marks ऐसे, so you have to understand how to write the answer. So यहाँ पर ना हमने एक diagram बना दिया that there is a job which can be high skilled and a job which is low skilled. And यहाँ आपने लिख दिया that this means there is, you have high bargaining capacity and you have low bargaining capacity. Right? And you just highlight this. That adds to your answer. That not only the person knows, yahan pe, again, here while you're writing, first of all, here you can write definition. Right? This is how the answer should be written. Here you will write beta factors. हमने दो फैक्टर बताए ना, स्किल्स और कंट्री, तो यहाँ पे आपने लिख दिया फैक्टर्स. ठीक है, अब हम लोग कंट्री के बारे में बोल रहे हैं. So as I said, this differs from country to country. Now, इधर भी एक important part है. तो मैंने यहाँ पे लिखा that you can bargain at firm level, industry level और national level. ठीक है, just take an example. Just for example, let's say that in steel industry, first समझ लो, then I will make you write that. So let's say that in the steel industry, beta, everyone starts demanding a high wage. They say कि हम इससे कम पैसे में तो काम करेंगे ही नहीं. This is the minimum wage at which I want to work. Now, when they start demanding a particular wage, कॉपर इंडस्ट्री के लोगों को लगता है कि अरे स्टील में तो इतना पैसा मिल ही रहा है. This is the wage that they are getting. Why should we get lower wage? They also start demanding higher wage. फिर तीसरा कॉटन इंडस्ट्री के वर्कर्स को लगता है that steel industry and copper industry, they are asking for a high wage. Why should I work for a low wage? They also start asking for a high wage. So a movement starts. Movement means one thing starts turning into other into third and so on. That is how bargaining starts happening at the national level. People look at each other, and when they see that acha, other people are getting so much, why are we working at a lower wage? They also start asking for higher wage, and that is how a movement starts in the nation. So what we can say, let's finish this answer. So we can say that beta, sometimes bargaining in one sector automatically extends to other workers working in other sectors or even the entire economy. So sometimes this movement starts in such a way that it simply extends to the entire economy. I will stop here for today, but I will continue this and I will talk about reservation wages in the next session, and we will talk about wage determination and price determination also. Okay, beta. Now let us discuss the class timings for this. So this is going to be, you will get the recorded sessions in case you are not able to attend the classes, but we are going to go ahead and we are going to do it every Monday and every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Today we started half an hour late, but we will be doing every Monday and Thursday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. That is when I will be doing intermediate macroeconomics. Okay. And as we know that every Tuesday and every Friday, again from 5 to 6 p.m., I will be doing intermediate microeconomics. So I hope to see you in these two classes on these days. Okay, beta. Thank you. Anything anyone would like to ask? Any question? Anything you have? Okay, thank you.